So, see.
Patrol has invited us down here for an exclusive look at how the border fence construction is going, how the enhancements are going, and they talked about a new partnership with the Department of Defense. Now, through a directive through the Trump administration, more soldiers from the Army and the Marines have been sent down here to the San Diego sector. Their goal and mission, install new concertina wire. Now, there's going to be at least 6 miles of this concertina wire installed by soldiers. Their job is to maintain it and continue to install it. The Border Patrol sector chief told us that they know that this fence is not going to stop people from climbing over the fence, but it's going to deter them and slow them down so that border agents have time to respond and apprehend. Now, to give you a comparison, the border sector chief said from this time last year, there were 1,400 apprehensions per day in the San Diego sector. As of today, in the new fiscal year, that number has dropped to 30 per day.
Today, Poncho and I decided to go out for a little trail ride and work on solving more of California's problems. Over the last year and a half or so, I've watched most of my friends sell their businesses, stop working altogether, retire early, move to other states, and it's always usually for the same reason. California is overtaxed, overregulated, and what a better way to bring all of my friends back, bring all of the businesses back that have left, to eliminate California income tax. Other states have done it. There's 9 states that don't have a state income tax. So why does the greatest state in the country have an income tax?
The numbers are way down. I mean, they are dramatically down.
They are down. Illegal entry is down 96%. What's most impressive is known gotaways. Known gotaways under Joe Biden, were on average 1,800 people a day across the border, weren't apprehended, weren't processed, weren't vetted. We don't know who they are, where they came from. That's a huge national security issue. Known gotaways are down to, double digits now. But
when we looked at the budget in Kentucky, the state receives $2 billion in federal education funding. Do you have a guarantee that the federal government, federal taxpayers will still provide $2 billion in education funding? That seems important to your state.
I'd rather, well, no, what I'd rather is a guarantee that my kids can read and write and do math. The amount of dollars, look, the number of dollars has gone up exponentially and our scores have gone the other way. So
it was very clear. The outward-facing programs that are going to be affecting students there's not going to be any defunding for those programs. When he talked about student loans, that would be going to the Small Business Administration, and also then the programs for students with disabilities will more than likely rest in HHS, which, by the way, is where they began. I think we're looking at putting things in different departments where they can operate very efficiently as we look at how we can shut down the Department of Education.
They're not operating.
Is there anything that you think Trump has done right?
Yeah, I mean, I think cracking down on fentanyl, making sure our borders are stronger. Look, nobody thinks illegal immigration is appropriate.
Closer, and we're closer to peace than we ever have been. This started with President Trump talking to both leaders back to back. We then, Secretary of State Rubio and I engaged the Russians, engaged the Ukrainians at our level, and now we have technical teams actually with Ukrainians and Russians in the same facility conducting proximity talks.
Mm-hmm. Every reporter's dream to get an exclusive, except this time around, neither party even knew that they were getting an exclusive. Listen to this. The National Security Council is right now trying to figure out how a reporter from The Atlantic was added to a group chat discussing upcoming military strikes against Houthi rebels in Yemen. That's right. Atlantic reporter Jeffrey Goldberg says he was added to a small group on the messaging app Signal that included Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard.
There is no corner on this earth we will not chase down a violent criminal, and there is no sector of the public we will not root out corruption and make sure the American people know what has happened, because that's what they deserve.
Joining the Senate?
Right now, we have, as I said, just a whole lot of people in the Congress. Okay, Jonathan, thanks.
Wait, I got one more. This is important.
Well, I asked you.
Okay.
You want to do nonsense, do nonsense.
No.
I don't want to talk about inside the Beltway stuff. I got 32,000 people.
I was just asking you about AOC because she was out there with you.
Yeah, fine. But I don't want to talk about this. What was the last question?
I was just going to ask you one more question about you. I mean,
Now you can
Black
respond.
women cannot be racist to white women. Are you kidding me?
Sorry?
That makes no sense.
Sorry?
Black women cannot be racist to white women. Do you not understand that?
Oh, yes,
I
they
understand
can.
You don't have the intellectual
Oh, yes, they
capacity
can.
to understand that.
Oh, yes,
but
they
that's
can.
Very much
And you've been
impossible.
racist to me.
That's very much
You've been
impossible.
racist to me, a white man, by saying I'm a race baiter. Yeah.
How am I racist to you? I'm black. I can't be racist to you.
You call me a race
Are you
baiter
kidding
with
me?
no
You're
evidence.
Racist to me.
When have I
You
been
can
a
be
race
racist-
baiter?
You can be racist to me.
When have I been a race baiter?
But I'm a powerhouse.
Tell me when I've been a race
I'm a
baiter.
powerhouse.
Well, you may be a
Pierce, I
powerhouse.
understand something.
You may be
I'm a powerhouse.
You may be a powerhouse.
Okay.
When have I been a race baiter?
I want you to admit that.
When have
okay.
I been a race baiter?
Okay.
When have I been a race baiter?
Okay.
This is absurd.
No, hang on. Tell me.
Honey.
Blossom, give me.
Close to it. Develop your network, Rumble, X, even YouTube sometimes. I think we're on today. That. Always get a frog in your throat, right? As you're getting ready to come on. The air happens every time. That last, how that amazes me. That last clip. The black lady. Well, blacks can't be I can't be racist. Shut up. Well, no, keep talking. Shows your ignorance to the facts. Anybody can be racist. Of course, they want to define it as they determine it. Only white people can be racist, so they can say anything they want. It's a double standard of the highest proportions, and I'm glad Pierce Morgan did not let the psycho chick, the psycho black chick, get away with the race baiting. It's going to stop. Along with the transphobia and the whole thing. Just heard a study. They're trying to say, well, the popular deal. Well, 8% of the population is vegan. Well, when you ask them what they eat every day, it's about 1.8%. Less than 2%. So over a quarter of the people that say, or only less than a quarter of the people who say they're vegan actually are vegan. We got to stop with the language. Just destruction or the double standard and everything else. Somebody is in deep trouble. That text that got out on the Yemen bombing or attack, that Hegseth, J.D. Vance, Tulsi Gabbard, I think a couple others, and got inadvertently linked or sent to a reporter. I guess it's the danger of that in today's market. What are they doing texting this stuff back and forth? Again, who's ever responsible for that? That's probably the first major blunder in a couple months in the Trump administration, but we're going to tell that's a big one. They should not have, or you should not have where you're doing that kind of sensitive talks on a text message going across off somebody's cell phone. It's way too easily hacked. So I hope they tighten that up. Sheriff Chad on old Poncho said, hey, we're going to come out. He's running for governor of the state of California. He's the current Riverside County sheriff. Says, hey, how about no income tax? I say I'm down with that as long as we're not replacing it with another tax. De facto defunding the schools and all the stupid stuff. It's a way to doge California. And they need to get rid of our whole tax the rich system. What, 90% of it or something's paid like the top 10% in earners in income tax. And that goes up and down, and we get these budget cycles that you can't predict. Nobody can predict them. It's your best get. The governor has one number, the legislative analyst has another number. They're just making mostly a wild ass guess, a wag. Because people in the higher income brackets, their income goes up and down like a seesaw. And as Sheriff Chad and many, we pointed out for 43 gazillion years. People have left California, mostly a lot heavier you are on the income side, the more likely you are to leave or relocate your business out of California because of the income taxes, the rules and the regulations, and getting stuck up as in an old-fashioned stick-up at a liquor store every time you turn around. So as long as the proposal is cutting the income tax but not pressing it up or not replacing it with something else that's going to raise the same amount of revenue. We need to knock the revenue down so we're not funding Medicaid health care for illegals. So we're not funding the $30 billion in unemployment fraud. 30 billion with a B. That ultimately is coming out of your pocket. You saw that Steve Gregory report at the beginning showing the new border wall and the fencing. There you see it. The rebuilt fencing that Joe Biden and crew were tearing down or letting the illegals cut holes through it so they could get through. Being replaced and down, that's why Tom Homan and Steve Gregory's reporting from Border Patrol, almost zero border crossings. Remember when we heard, Biden can't do a thing because we don't have comprehensive immigration reform. Trump gets in, less than 2 months, almost cut down to zero. As Tom Homan said, 1,500 a day we're getting through. We didn't even have them sign the paperwork to come back in 10 years or whatever it was. Don't even know where they are. Have no idea. This is the kind of stuff that we're really, really, really going to reap the benefits of. Just today, Trump announced with Hyundai, new auto plant or expansion of auto plant, new steel plant being built in the United States, billions coming in. They had Landry, the governor of Louisiana, coming in. Of their big deal coming in, $4 trillion. $3 to $4 trillion in 2 months. Chips manufacturers, the chips that make all this stuff work, all these electronics, they don't do nothing without those silicon chips. We used to be the world leaders, Silicon Valley. Now we hardly build any. Trump's bringing that manufacturing back along with lots of others. Again, there's going to be some bumps in the road. Again, that deal with Hegseth and the text message on cell phones, a highly sensitive military operations that were going to be pulled in Yemen are very distressing. So we need to definitely find out what was that, and whoever screwed that up needs to pay the price. Face the Nation with Margaret Brennan. Oh, how would you like to deal with her every day? The constant interruptions. Lack of respect. I mean, I get it if you're on if somebody's straying off topic and you're trying to get them back on, or, they're talking about the price of tea in China. When somebody's answering the question you ask, it's very rude. I don't care if you're a journalist or you're just talking to somebody. Very rude and inconsiderate to be interrupting them. But this is the psycho chick. This is why you can't run on 147% emotion. Oh, if they close down the Department of Education, they're going to cut $2 billion of your state in Kentucky. Rand Paul, how are you going to guarantee? Is this all hell? The kids will be starving. They'll be drooling on themselves. They won't know how to add 2 + 2 together. Oh, they don't know how to do that already. They don't know how to read. They don't need science. They're all 70% of kids in United States, not at grade level. But the problem is we're not giving them enough money. We're giving them 3 times more than we have 10 years ago. It's still not enough. Rand Paul making some absolute salient points.
But when we looked at the budget in Kentucky, the state receives $2 billion in federal education funding. Do you have a guarantee that the federal government, federal taxpayers will still provide $2 billion in education funding? That seems important to your state.
I'd rather.
Do you have a guarantee that it's going to be, because if kids, it's for the children? No, it's not. It's for the teachers and the principals and the superintendents and the chief business officials, the chief academic officials. They screwed this all up and lining their pockets. Again, prorated, if average teacher in California worked a full year, their compensation would be $180,000 a year. I don't think they're starving to death. Rand Paul properly answering the question, as he should.
Well, no, what I'd rather is a guarantee that my kids can read and write and do math. The amount of dollars, look, the number of dollars has gone up exponentially and our scores have gone the other way. So dollars are not proportional to educational success. What I want is success. And I've talked a lot about this. I think there are innovations we can do where there's more learning via some of the best teachers and we pay them more.
Merit-based pay. Pay based on results. If the kids are at grade level, if they're learning, if they're on the path to become productive, successful adults, nobody has a problem paying for that. If you're making mind-numb robots, we got a problem. If we keep paying more for that, that's what Rand Paul circled it back. Not, we've paid more money, we've shoveled more money at the problem, and it's getting exponentially worse. Education's got worse as we pay teachers and administrators more. What about that? Don't you understand, Margaret Brennan?
I would like to have an NBA or NFL of teachers, the most extraordinary teachers, teach the entire country.
Who would run that? The education department?
Some of them know what you.
Who would run that? The education department? Yeah, give it to the people that have failed for their entire existence for over 40 years. Achievement was down, teacher salaries and administrators have went up. Like we've run the chart 152 times. the Department of Education who screwed it all up. Yeah, well, we can't get rid of that. We want our kids to be stupid.
You'd find is they'd be selected out state by state, across the nation. Look, people say, oh, with the Department of Education would have no testing. I was in school before then. We did achievement tests in the 6th grade, the 5th grade, the 8th grade, and we compared ourselves across state lines. There were international testing.
Yeah.
You don't need the Department of Education for any of that. But what I can tell you is the best teacher in the world is not teaching the kids.
Yeah.
What we need to do is have the best teachers and pay them more, but they wouldn't teach 30 kids, they might teach 10 million kids at a time because it would be presented through the internet with local teachers reinforcing the.
Okay. Yeah, we need to design and implement an education system for the 21st century. Quit running on a 19th century education model. It worked back then. It worked partially in the 20th century. Now it needs to be totally redone. We have so many much more tools and things to do that. I said this. I said it before COVID.
Lessons.
Well, but when we looked at,
we need to, we could double our school capacity. We haven't needed to build a school in the last 10 years. What if you go to school 2 days a week and you're online 2 days a week? Just doubled your school capacity. In a blink of an eye. And had COVID come on, we'd already had the steps in place, I should say, to get this all done. Boy, it's getting hot in here. And voila, we would have just smoothly transitioned into it. There wouldn't, even if we would have kept with the schools locked down as they were, the damage to kids' education would have been 1/10 of what it is today. But oh no. Don't listen to common sense. He committed suicide. You didn't think the CIA was involved in this. Mike Pence.
One more thing, if you want to look up on this, you see how they conceal it. If you just type in USAID, Zunzaneo, and discrete or discrete action, and you'll see how USAID, when this scandal popped off, everyone said, "What the hell? How did this happen?" This is classic CIA work. You're using Cayman Islands bank accounts. You're saying you're earmarking it for Pakistani aid. This has clear implications for U.S. statecraft if this gets busted. This is why we task the CIA to do this. Plausible deniability. If something has diplomatic blowback and we don't want U.S. fingerprints on it, we need a formal intelligence agency because there's diplomatic blowback if U.S. fingerprints are revealed.
Ukraine didn't want us in their education system because they didn't want it screwed up, and we sent the CIA in there to do that. What do you think they did in the United States? Why do you think Randy Weingarten sent that letter to Merrick Garland saying, shut up people like Roy going to the school board meetings during the COVID and everywhere else? This is exactly what they were afraid of. Kids are going to get an education. This is Secretary of Education under the Trump administration, Linda McMahon. Here we go.
It was very clear. The outward-facing programs that are going to be affecting students there's not going to be any defunding for those programs. When he talked about student loans, that would be going to the Small Business Administration, and also then the programs for students with disabilities will more than likely rest in HHS, which, by the way, is where they began. I think we're looking at putting things in different departments where they can operate very efficiently as we look at how we can shut down the Department of
Do
Education.
they not operate efficiently now?
Not as well as they should be. As a matter of fact, the president campaigned on the fact that he wanted to close down the Department of Education. And what we saw with our scores recently with the NAEP, which is our country's report card, I mean, it's unacceptable where education is in our country today. And so the Department of Education does not educate one child. It does not establish any curriculum in any states. It doesn't hire teachers. It doesn't establish programs. What it is more of a pass-through of funding, which is appropriated by Congress, by the way. And so we want to make sure that that funding continues in the departments where it needs to be, but at the same time, give states the opportunities to be innovative and creative with their likely rest in HHS.
That's what we got to get back to. Local control. Live or die in your community. If your community wants crop education, then that's their business. This whole equality, remember, diversity and equity inclusion started with the kids. Oh, you know, the rich kids are getting too much. The poor kids aren't getting as much money. If we do that, look at Oakland. They dumped billions into that school districts around there. And LA. And the achievement, the student results, the results go down and down and down. I got to run this again.
Which, by the way, is where they began. I think we're looking at putting things in different departments where they can operate very efficiently as we look at how we can shut down the Department of Education.
Do they not operate efficiently now?
Not as well.
They're not operating efficiently now? Dana, have you not been paying the hell attention? Dana, Bash? Zero. Less since it started. Student achievement has went down. Teacher salaries, administrator salaries, and hires have went through the roof. We've dumped more money into this than God awful knows what. They're not efficient. They haven't done a damn thing except take your money out of your pocket and put it in theirs. That's all that's happened. 40 plus years. Back to Sheriff Chad's plan, as he's running for governor, his proposal for no state income tax. Here we go. We thought.
And work on solving more of California's problems. Over the last year and a half or so, I've watched most of my friends sell their businesses, stop working altogether, retire early, move to other states. And it's always usually for the same reason. California is overtaxed, overregulated. And what a better way to bring all of my friends back, bring all of the businesses back that have left, to eliminate California income tax. Other states have done it. There's 9 states that don't have a state income tax. So why does the greatest state in the country have an income tax? I believe that our hard workers in California could spend their money far better than our current government. So as your governor, we will work immediately on eliminating California income tax for all of Californians. Stay tuned for more info.
I'm 100%, if I can shut that off, I'm 100% fine with that. If he is truly meaning that if you take the income tax out, we're not going to replace it with something else that's going to generate as much or more revenue. Plenty of money. We ran everything. A little over $100 billion 10 years ago. Now it's $300 billion and climbing. Is your life 3 times better, 300% better? Or is the DMV working 300% more, better? the unemployment offices if you're a crook, because they shelled out $30 billion in welfare fraud. That's what we got to take care of. And if we don't, we're all going to be in big trouble. So, as they say, the devil's in the details. But we shall see how it all works out on that. But I hope there's somebody, you know, with that recent polling that came out, that half the people in California are considering voting Republican, which is like an all-time high. It hasn't been that way in God knows how long. One of the... Oh, I want to get to this one. Another one on the CIA involved in education. Mike Benz again on Real America's Voice.
I forget if it was the New York Federal Reserve Bank or the one in Atlanta. But the fact is the State Department was getting outside recommendations that we might want to seize their assets, threaten to seize the assets that they keep in U.S. banks if they simply get control over their own curriculum again. At the time, the State Department was fearful that Ukrainians were only motivated to take back control of their education system because they were unhappy with Western-style education. They were unhappy with the mandatory curriculum teachings on civic literacy that effectively purged their own history, that put a ban on the use of the Russian language while half of the country spoke Russian, that implemented all these reforms that the Ukrainians didn't like, and we have effectively strong-armed them in order to keep control over what's inside the minds of their little baby boys and girls.
And you know, I was actually having a conversation with Joshua Lysek earlier today, the co-author of Unhumans, about all this. And we were talking about fourth-generation warfare, and these are all fourth-generation warfare tactics that were used against all the target populations that you're talking about. And I said something about, I said, well, you know, fourth-generation warfare is so incredibly powerful. That's why it's so useful even here in the United States, like for elections and various things. And he said, yeah, fourth-generation works right up until the point where someone decides to use third-generation warfare back. And that's basically the start of the Ukraine war, where the Russians finally...
You can see the disinformation. Look at what happened, you know, with our elections, you know, with the COVID con and the disinformation and the scaring you to death. We got tons of problems all across the board. Carl DeMaio up at the hearings. So you're getting, this is why you need to get rid of the income tax. They got way too freaking much money. They're looking at every time to extract money out of your pocket and putting it in theirs.
This bill puts money back into people's pockets. That's why we have so many conservatives, so many independents, so many Republicans, so many Democrats supporting this bill, because it gives their money back away from the government and gets them back into their pockets.
I'm just suggesting we shouldn't be taking the money in the first place and then claiming that we're being generous by giving a percentage, a small portion back.
Thank you, Mr. Morrow. No one.
This is the con of these earned income credits. Oh, you get a check. It's like, oh, I get a check back after my income taxes. No, that was money They withheld your money for a year, used it in for free, and then gave it back to you. This whole, oh, we're going to give you a check for $500. We raise your taxes $5,000, and then we give you a check about $500, and you think, oh, this is great. Like Carl DeMaio said, let's not take it in the first place. That's what Chad's talking about, and if he's talking about, which I think he is, he can come in and explain his plan. I'd love it. Love to hear it. Take the income tax out, as long as you're not replacing it with something even worse that's going to generate more revenue, then I'm fine with it. Because we're getting ripped off at every turn of the wheel. You know, don't buy the, and I think people are ever increasingly, I think COVID woke a lot of people up. Don't buy the con. Don't buy the, oh, we're going to give you a $250 rebate or check back, earn credit on your taxes or whatever. Remember, inflation is the hidden cruelest tax. And that's what the progressive tax the rich. Well, as you earn more money, you climb up that tax bracket and you're going to pay more. That 5% raise became a 4% raise because 1% of it's going to the tax man, or 2%, or half of it, depending on where you are in the income scale. Even if you're down on the bottom end, you might go from paying no or state income tax to start paying it where you didn't before. It's a false narrative. It's a con job. And you got to stop buying the little candy that they keep trying to throw out there to you. I want to go to this. This is something we must straighten out. And I'm glad Piers Morgan's another one who's on the conversion charts, like the Bill Maher's of the world and a lot of the lefties, government control artists. As Riley Gaines said, she was on the panel with Piers Morgan and the black lady. I don't know who she is. It's hard to keep in control when you have people just saying absolutely stupid. But we cannot be afraid to tell things as they are or as they should be. And stop with the rhetoric or the double standards. The rule should be if one person can use a word, everyone should use a word. If a word is so bad that it should not be used, then nobody should be allowed to use it. And this whole, oh, if you're so-called white, you can only be a racist if you're white. Blacks cannot be racist. I don't even know who this chick is, the black chick. She is devoid of almost any sort of intellectual thought or honest discussion or debate of a topic. It's shout you down, call you names. I'm glad Piers Morgan stood up to her and called out her stupidity.
Now
you can
Black
respond.
women cannot be racist to white women. Are you kidding me?
Sorry?
That makes no sense.
Sorry?
Black women cannot be racist to white women. Do you not understand that?
Yes, they.
Of course, we don't understand that because it's a lie. Black women can be racist. Anyone can be racist. Race means you favor one race or think one race is superior to another. The race, La Raza, the organization Manny Perez formed at UCR. The race, translated from Spanish to English. Racism comes, anybody can be a racist. If you think blacks are superior to, or Hispanics, or Asians, or whites are superior to, you are a racist.
You don't have the intellectual capacity to understand that.
Oh, yes, they
but that's
can.
Very much
And you've been
impossible.
racist to me.
That's very much
You've
impossible.
been racist to me, a white man, by saying I'm a race baiter. Yeah.
How am I racist to you? I'm black. I can't be racist to you.
You call me a race
Are you
baiter
kidding
with
me?
no
You're
evidence.
Racist to me.
When have I
You
been a
can be
race
racist-
baiter?
You can be racist to me.
When have I been a race baiter?
But I'm a powerhouse.
Tell me when I've been a race baiter.
I'm a powerhouse. I'm a powerhouse. I can't be. You can be racist to me, but I can't be racist to you. No, lady, you do not have the intellectual capacity to understand the undeniable fact. Because the only way you can win your argument is to deny the truth. As Riley Gaines said, I don't know how I can. It's difficult under these circumstances not to just go, not to just absolutely just lose your cool like this chick is doing. Because she can't win the argument on an intellectual basis. So it's shout, call names, turn the subject, shout you down, belittle you, dismiss your point of view.
Powerhouse.
Well, you may be a
Here's-
powerhouse.
Understand something.
You may be a
I'm
powerhouse. You
powerhouse.
may be a powerhouse.
Okay.
When have I been a race baiter?
Oh, you admit that.
When have I
Okay.
been a race baiter?
Okay.
She doesn't even listen. Piers Morgan said, you may be a powerhouse. Oh, you admit that. No, he said you may be a powerhouse. He didn't say you are. He said you may be. That means you could be or you could not. That isn't, he didn't say, oh, sorry, you're a powerhouse. Please forgive me, Miss Queen. Of all things intellectual, the smartest woman in the world, replacing Hillary Clinton and Comrade Kamala.
When have I been a race baiter?
Okay.
This is absurd.
No, hang on, tell me.
Honey.
Blossom, give me one example of me race baiting. Blossom, go.
I'm here at this point. I'm just here to talk about trans women in sports. I said
Okay.
what I said.
So you don't have
and I
anything,
to
do you?
Repeat any.
That was great. Pierce stood his ground. Where am I a race baiter? Well, I'm just here to talk about trans women in sports. You made the accusation, you put it out there, and it goes exactly to the trans thing. I said it, you obey. That's her premise. If I say boys, men can compete in girls' sports, be in men's locker or be in girls' locker rooms, bathrooms, whatever, don't question me. And then, like you said, back it up, lady. She can't do that, or he, or whatever it is. But it's about time. Guys like Piers Morgan stood up to this stuff and said, no, we're not playing that game anymore. We're done. Prove, let's have an honest, intellectual debate about this. They can't. They will lose every time. The only thing they got is shout and pound and stomp on the table. And hopefully, and in most cases, in a lot of cases lately, they've gotten their way doing it. So we got to the whole boys and girls sports thing, or locker rooms, or bathrooms. Small minority stomps and screams about it. Here we go. Goes back to the old adage. You can't let the perfect stand in the way of the greater good. You're not going to say every kid is not going to be an Albert Einstein genius level. If the parents don't want their kids educated, then if that's their culture, if they got to a certain point and that's where they want to be, you have the opportunity in the United States, no matter what socioeconomic background, shade of brown tone in your skin, where you're at, you have the opportunity. And nothing's equal. Not everything is 100% fair. Some people are going to have a tougher road than others. But we got to be honest about, and we can't, if you're going to let one kid out of 30 disrupt the whole class so nobody's able to learn, you've got to say, get that kid, suspend, get out, put him in a special room, whatever. But you can't let that one kid destroy the other 29 from getting an education. And that's what we have focused on. Because one person didn't get health care or that, everybody's got to be in an untenuous situation. We'll get into more of that with Dr. Kelly when she calls in, hopefully at the bottom of the hour. We'll be back on back to back, we had her on Friday. So we'll see how that goes. But these are the encouraging signs, like 50% of the people are thinking of voting Republican in California. When there's only 25% registered Republicans. That means for every Republican, there's another one thinking about it or looking that. We saw that big shift in 2024 to Donald J. Trump. And again, don't make the mistake of thinking it's a Republican movement. It's more of a Trump MAGA movement.
Hey, Roy, we're about 30 seconds out.
You got it. As Sean said, we'll be joining the Mighty Met KMET, 1490 AM.
I got a great article I'm going to send you a link to. You check out. You
got it. Maybe we'll smoke it in tomorrow. Or today, if I can look at it. Is it on healthcare or something else?
No, it's on Douglas V. Gibbs' site that he wrote about the presidential power of immigration and stuff. Oh, you'll love it.
Oh, good. Yes, I'll definitely be interested in that.
All right, here we go. 10 seconds.
Got it.
To use code LOSESHOW and get 10% off your order.
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Not necessarily, though.
There's that funky live guitar music that comes in every Monday through Friday live at 5:30. Might admit, 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire in the format today and band. Join the vast video audience, Evil Up Network, Rumble, X. I don't even think we're on YouTube. Man, oh man. Dr. Kelly should be on in a minute. Chad Bianco is out riding Poncho. He lives out here in the rural area of the Inland Empire, has some horses and stuff out there at his home. Said, hey, how about no income tax in California? I'm 111% behind that, as long as we're not replacing it with something else that's going to generate more or equal or more revenue. As long as we're getting rid of the income tax and we're pruning the absolutely... California may waste more money than the federal government, believe it or not. Talk about waste, fraud, and abuse. $30 billion in unemployment fraud, just one case. You know, oh, well, we're going to provide health care for illegals. Oh, it's only going to be $6 billion a year. Well, now it's 12. The system's going broke. We got to hold the tin cup out for $6 billion to pay the bills at the hospital. They've rung up in a year. It's double over the estimate. California needs pruning back, especially in education and everything else. It's stunning, absolutely stunning. The screwed upness we have in the state of California. But we'll figure it out, hopefully. The stat there, if that polling is anywhere close to correct, that we have, that 50% of Californians are now figuring or considering voting Republican in the state of California. Not only does California, the nation, has a fighting chance, as we usually do on a Monday, we have, as I've determined her, supreme physician in all the world, expert on COVID-19 and just about everything else, Dr. Kelly Victory. Welcome to IE Newswire with Roy.
Hey, Roy, glad to be back on a normal Monday. So my schedule.
Yes, you're going
right
back to back, from last Friday to today. Yesterday was 15 years of Obamacare. We have seen the healthcare prices explode to proportions and cost per person that nobody dreamed of. We have seen services be cut to millions of people amongst the promise, oh, we're going to include everybody and the cost is going to go down. We're going to cover more people and all that. They knew that was a lie. They knew it was a lie when they passed it, when Nancy Pelosi says, you can't look at the bill till after we pass it. That was, if anything right there, that showed how crooked it was. Now we're in the midst of a healthcare crisis. We went through the scamdemic, maybe that really exposes. We got Robert Kennedy Jr., who I don't agree with on everything, but I at least think we can start the path maybe to straightening out our healthcare system. What say you, Dr. Kelly?
Well, let's go back to this issue of Obamacare and be very clear, Roy. The authors of Obamacare knew from the beginning that it would fail. It was never their intention to create a universal health insurance for everyone. It was an attempt to push the United States as quickly as possible to a socialized medical system. That's what the architects had in mind, regardless of what they tried to sell to the American public. And as you rightly point out, because of the way they did it, it drove healthcare costs up exponentially. And the fundamental flaw here is that It's the concept of insurance. Insurance is never meant to cover everything, okay? It doesn't happen in any other type of insurance. I don't care if you're talking about homeowners insurance or car insurance or anything else. I've used this analogy before. You have to have car insurance in order to legally drive a car in this country. But when you pull into the gas station to fill up, you don't expect State Farm to cover that. When you get the tires rotated or the oil changed, that isn't covered by your insurance. Likewise, if you have homeowners insurance, which you have to have in order to get a mortgage, when you go to mow the lawn or clean the gutters or have the house painted, that is not covered by your, quote, homeowner's insurance. And likewise, it has to be with health. But what they did with Obamacare is they said not only will we have it cover everything, but we will force the insurers to provide every type of coverage for every person. So despite the fact that I am decades beyond childbearing age, I am forced to have a policy that covers maternity. You are forced to have a policy that covers maternity, Roy, regardless of your pronouns. So this is the insanity. So it has failed, and it was doomed to fail, and they knew that it would, in hopes that it would push us into a socialized healthcare system. Now, to what Robert Kennedy Jr. is trying to do, this is the correct path to controlling healthcare costs is to manage health. You cannot manage healthcare costs if you have an increasingly ill and diseased population. You have got to focus on overall health, and that is what Bobby Kennedy is attempting to do by looking at everything from big ag to big pharma, big food, and looking at everything in between. How is it that we've gotten to be as fat and sedentary, diabetic, hypertensive, depressed, insomniac as we are right now? Because it is not tenable. So focusing on health is the right way to go about it, but he's got a long road to hoe.
Well, now I understand why they came up with this hideous concept that men could get pregnant. So they could say, well, you have to pay for, you could get pregnant, Roy, of that. This is this is how absurd we have been. But I got a chart up. Just before Obamacare, average healthcare costs per capita, $1,700 per year. We are just over $4,200 in this 15-year time frame. Over 2.5 times. In 15 years of this, it was supposed to cover everybody and save everybody money. We are paying exponentially more. And even if we would have went at the current trajectory that healthcare costs were going, we're still paying almost twice as much more in 15 years than we would have just based on the previous 20 years of the way the average healthcare was going up on that. And it's going to go up some because of new technologies and this and that coming up. It's going to get more expensive as it goes. But most of the expense, most of that 250% has not only has ruined healthcare, the doctors now are some of the least percentage, hardly any percentage of whatever you're being charged for, whatever, doesn't matter. Doctor's visit to heart attack, major surgery, Dr. Kelly.
No, absolutely. Listen, being a physician is no longer a lucrative career. UCLA announced at their last meeting that 50%, half of their incoming class of medical students does not intend to practice medicine. They intend to go into business, consulting, work for pharmaceutical companies, because it doesn't pay to be a practitioner in a hospital-based practice or in a large practice or hanging up a shingle. It's too hard. You work too hard, and you simply don't get the kind of reimbursement that would make it worthwhile. So, there's a huge issue, but you could have predicted that these rates would go sky high if all of a sudden the government came out and said, okay, automobile insurance now has to also cover oil changes and gas fill-ups and tire rotations, and homeowners insurance has to cover, the care and maintenance of your front yard. can you imagine what those policies would cost? They would go up by 250%. Exactly what we've seen with this ridiculous Obamacare. And so when you add those two things together, the perversion of the concept of insurance, along with the stunning ill health of Americans, that's a toxic combination. And it can only do one thing, and that is drive costs to the point where it is either too expensive for people to get care, or the system is so overburdened that you can't get care even if you could pay for it, because the waits are too long. We are becoming like Canada, where it takes, I just was listening to a post from a Canadian woman who has having debilitating headaches, and they're concerned she may have a brain tumor. And they scheduled her for a CAT scan to rule out a brain tumor in May of 2026. Okay? But trust me, if she's got a brain tumor, she won't make it to May of 2026. And this is where we are in this country, where it is so expensive that either people can't pay for it or they can't get it because of lack of accessibility.
That's criminal. I mean, when it wouldn't have been before this, it probably wouldn't have been a week at the maximum that you'd have been on the operating table and they'd have been drilling on your head or cutting it open or whatever. And, you might have a fighting chance of surviving a few more years after that, or maybe 10 or 15 or 20 of that. Like, DJ Daniel surviving brain cancer at a very young age of that. Can you imagine if they'd have told his dad, well, maybe a couple years ago we'll get around to operating on your kid, that, he wouldn't have got the badge up there at the White House or in Congress from that, he'd have been dead. And that's the underlying cruelty of what happened 15 years ago yesterday, Dr. Kelly.
Without question. And the reality is that I am one of the handful of people whose life distinguishing features that I actually read the entire Obamacare bill. It's about 10,000 pages. Truly, people talk about it being 2,900. It's actually, given that every single paragraph references another bill or legislation, by the time you pull all of those other bills, it's about 10,000 pages worth of legislation. I spent 6 weeks in the law library at Case Western Reserve reading it before it was passed. I did what the people in Congress were too lazy to do. I actually did read it, and I could tell you, on the back of a cocktail napkin that the numbers did not pen out. There was no possible way it was going to work. It was going to be an abject failure, and that's exactly what happened. The problem is there was all these other things baked into it. People in Congress did not read it. They were sold a bill of goods. Big Pharma had a lot to do with it, as well as, the teachers union, lots of other people had input in it. There are so many things in the Obamacare bill that have absolutely nothing to do with health care. Nothing at all has to do with, school systems, things that are being tried. Lots of input, as you might imagine, by the teachers union, things having to do with nothing to do with health care at all. And it was just now a tragedy that it was passed.
1,010 million% on that. It's absolutely criminal, in my view, criminal of what has happened with this stuff. Just like there was a guy who's now a doctor. He was in medical school 15 years ago and bought into this, voted for it, or, was glad it passed, thought, and when I get out of medical school, I'm going to do that. Another physician said, $50,000 bill. The dude doing the surgery got $1,000 out of the whole pie. Like you said, you would have to go through all the stuff you have to do to become a doctor. You'd have to be insane to go through all that, to go through 10 years of schooling and torture and everything else to finally get that. And then, not to say that you're making the same as a guy digging a ditch, for crying out loud. Dr. Kelly.
No, exactly. And it's with tremendous liability. I mean, you could, the lawsuits, you have tremendous liability, tremendous exposure. It's a terrible lifestyle. If you're in anything other than one of the super subspecialties, you're on call, you give up your holidays, weekends, and nights to be doing it. And I did it because I loved it. I really did. But at this point, you spend way more time doing paperwork, filling out, trying to get reimbursed. For every doctor that's working in an office, there are 5 or 6 people in the back office trying to collect, trying to get paid, trying to manage the insurance paperwork, get in network, and all of this other stuff. You really are not able to do what we were trained to do. It's one of the reasons I loved disaster and trauma medicine, because it's a great equalizer. When you're out in the field, nobody really cares about the insurance. You just do the job. So it made it really what I trained for. But your average pediatrician or internist or cardiologist, it's a miserable life.
1,000%. We had this whole debacle that broke last week here in California it has to do with immigration and healthcare costs. The brilliant Gavin Newsom decided, trying to buy votes or whatever, curry favor, said, oh, we're gonna cover everybody in California with Medicaid. Doesn't matter if you're here illegally, not illegally, dropped in from Mars or everywhere. It's only gonna cost $6 billion. Well, now the bill's up to $12 billion. They're out there swinging the tin cup saying, hey, we need to borrow $6 billion of this. In 1 year, they blew the estimate by twice. His spokeswoman, Izzy Garden, said, this isn't new. Rising Medicaid costs are a national challenge affecting both red and blue states alike. It's not unique to California. You didn't know this a year ago, Izzy, Gavin, when you did this? And again, this is how far I believe nobody knows how far down the train tracks this runaway train is on these costs. Because how could you blow it by over twice in the first year? It's insane, Dr. Kelly.
Well, Gavin Newsom is the gift that keeps on giving, and he is likely to run for the Democratic nomination for the presidency. So God help us if he actually ascends to that level. This is ridiculous how they could have even thought that was a good idea. You cannot be covering illegals in this country. You can't cover them for health care, Roy. You can't give them an education. You can't give them housing. We can't give them food. We don't have enough of that to go around for our own people. We have veterans, people who fought for our freedoms, living on the streets, suffering from lack of mental health services, hungry, without homes, without transportation. We have issues here for American citizens. We cannot be giving this away to illegals. And of all the things Trump has done so far, I think closing the border was a good one. But it's an uphill battle when you've got people like Gavin Newsom coming up with these harebrained ideas like, oh, I got a great idea. Let's give everybody health care, give everybody Medicaid, regardless of whether they're here legally or not. I mean, the numbers simply do not pencil.
1,000%. And, this whole thing of, jobs Americans won't do. Well, you know what? If we cut out all the social and safety nets of this and of that, if your choice was you're going to have to go out and pick in the fields or you're going to starve to death, I bet you people would turn around and say, oh, I wouldn't do that. Or, I guess that job at McDonald's or the fast food restaurant or cleaning the toilets at the hotel or whatever. That don't look so bad now. But when you're paying, when you figure, when you don't have to work, when you don't have to do that, when you get paid just for plopping your feet up on the desk or sleeping in and watching cartoons till noon or something, then that's why we're doing it. It's not because people won't do the jobs. It's because we have created a society of where they can take money and earnings and effort from somebody else and give it to them, Dr. Kelly.
100%. I mean, it started with the entire welfare system, which encouraged or certainly facilitated people, women, to have babies out of wedlock because it made it totally plausible for them to have children without somebody earning a wage at home to support them. So we started having all of these, single moms raising kids. Then we paid them more to stay home and have children than to go to work. I hate to tell you, but if you pay people more to sit on the front, porch and smoke pot rather than go to work, guess what? A lot of them are going to sit on the front porch and smoke pot instead of going to work. But if you instead say, no, we are cutting that off, of welfare to work, whatever you want to call it, you have got to be out there. If you are an able-bodied person, you should be earning a living. The reality is, and this is stunningly reproducible across cultures and across countries. If you look at every country, there's about 10% of any given population that is not capable of caring for themselves or working for themselves, either because of mental or physical disabilities or because they have overwhelming family obligations, such as they're caring for a sick or dying child or parent. About 10% of people can't work. The other 90% can. So 90% of the population can pull 10% of the population in the wagon. When you get to the point, however, where you've got more than 50% of the population in the wagon, the people pulling are starting to get really tired and going, you know what? I got a great idea. All you people sitting in the damn wagon who can actually be working, get out and start pulling your own weight. And that's what we've got to do in this country. This is tough love. If somebody died and made me queen, I'd say, here's the deal. You better prove, you're going to have to prove that you are not able to work before you can get any type of assistance, because there are jobs out there and you might not like it. In that case, do what you need to do to pull yourself up so you can get to a better job or a different job. But until then, you're going to do those jobs that are available, whether it's tarring the roads or picking, crops or whatever the heck it is. We cannot continue to pay people to not work.
The incremental creep will kill you 98.7% of the time. And we prove it every day. Thanks for being on, Dr. Kelly. We'll do it again soon.
Sounds great. Thanks, Roy.
Dr. Kelly Victory saying it only as she can. And that's the bottom line. That's what I'm saying about Sheriff Chad's deal about getting rid of the income tax, which I'm all for. Whatever. That's probably the worst. Our tax system is fouled up. Our income tax system is totally chaotic. Even if you kept it, it needs severe reforming. But on top of that, we need to drop revenues. We ran the state 10 years ago on a little over $100 billion. Everything. General slush fund, special funds, this and that. It's over $300 billion. It's went up almost exactly like the cost per student, $8,000 to $24,000. That's what you get. That's what we got to eliminate. We got to get, like Dr. Kelly said, with a wagon. There's too many people in the wagon. When you get more people in the wagon than are pulling it, that's when you got deep trouble. That's when societies collapse. And that's what we're sitting on that precipice. When government is too much of GDP, too much of an influence, too many people freeloading, gaming the system, waste, fraud, and abuse, however you want to say it. From pharmaceutical companies to the people who are ripping off in the unemployment fraud and everything in between. Funding gangs, as we found out, like LA or whatever they were doing down there. Giving money to the gangs. Your government. That's money. They pointed a gun at you, took it from you, and gave it to a gang member. Hideous. We've got to stop the stupidity before it buries us all. Hopefully, we get our act together soon. As you know, I've been talking about standing up for our country, doing something. These big box stores stayed open while the little guys closed. Will our voices be heard? Does voting with our dollars work? PatriotSwitch.com gives patriots the power to walk away from the big box stores forever. Stop supporting the enemies of freedom now. That's why PatriotSwitch.com was created, for those who support America. PatriotSwitch.com. Is your car doing the hucklebuck and afraid you will be stuck? Well, head on down to Toyota of San Bernardino, Nissan of San Bernardino, Subaru of San Bernardino, and the San Bernardino Auto Mall, and catch a Camry, look ravishing in a Rogue, or be styling in a Subaru. Don't forget I-10 Toyota in Indio for those of you in the lower desert. You deserve to be the happiest human on the planet. So head on down to one of these 4 great dealerships for the car of your dreams. Spread the word. IE Newswire is now on every Monday through Friday, live at 5 p.m. on Rumble and KMET 1490 AM, 5:30 to 6 p.m. Join all the cool kids who want an eclectic look at the news without all the filters of the evil scoundrels of social media and the despicable dorks of the dominant press. Don't bumble and stumble. Subscribe to IE Newswire on Rumble and roll with the best hillbilly hoedown. That's it. If you want to buy American, go to PatriotSwitch.com. If you need a new Subaru or Toyota, go to one of Cliff Cummings' great dealerships at San Bernardino Auto Mall, the 10 and 215 Hurry-aways. Don't forget I-10 Toyota down in the lower desert. Man, we got a lot of work to do. Things are looking better. Don't want to throw rain on the parade. There'll be a little setbacks like that deal with Hegseth and the messages or whatever, however that got screwed up. That needs to be straightened out. But mistakes are going to be made. It's really the only major one I see Trump's administration's made in the couple months. But if they go by past histories, any indication of future behavior, they'll get that straightened out real fast. Deportations down. We're dealing honestly with education. Everything else is shouting everybody down, trying to walk off like Bernie Sanders. And he did come back after he walked off on Jonathan Karl of ABC and nothing else. Accentuate the positive. That'll do it for today. We usually stay at this time. Mandatory, you're back here in 23 hours. Why? You're the best darn show in the whole wide world. Until then, see ya.
The proceeding was a paid.
All right, Roy, I sent you that link in your email. I will talk to you tomorrow.
Does he still do that Saturday show that he?
Yeah,
Did he talk about it then, or?
He did, yeah, but this is the article that he wrote about.
So yeah, I just wanted to know because I might go back and just listen to it after I read it.
Okay, yeah, it's on. It's on there. It's on there. So yeah, they do. I think he did a great job on that article. So
thanks for the heads up. I'll check her out.
All right, talk to you later. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye.
Dang. Hey.